My name's Merrigan. I'm 39. I live in London and I'm in the process of training to be a lawyer.
And what was life like before you started to work with me?
I came to you because of my attachment in relationships, first and foremost. I had anxious attached. I had fear of abandonment and rejection, and saw everything as abandonment and rejection. All my relationships to many things, like it was really looking at relationships to friends, family, my relationship with drinking as well. I think all of my relationships have been impacted by the coaching.
What were some of the doubts that you had within yourself before we started coaching?
Fear of being on my own forever, looking for a relationship, still am, but feel very differently about it. But I think, I looked at things with limiting beliefs, big fear that I didn't know how to find balance and control in my life. It was just very extreme, everything. Turned to alcohol as a way of finding balance. I was working so hard. I was giving 150% in all my friendships and my relationships, and I really wasn't doing enough self-care, really.
And what hesitations did you have about starting coaching with me?
I felt a bit desperate, I think, when I came to you. I'd done a lot of work over many years, but the one thing that I hadn't looked at was relationships. And I suppose, the commitment of not really knowing you and is this going to work? And it's a bit like, can I commit? There were certain areas of my life where I felt sort of quite unhappy. There was areas that just still weren't in a sort of positive place. So it was kind of like, am I just jumping into another thing that I'm trying to do to sort of fix myself? I think that was always a concern, and it always is when you're sort of committing to something that's going to cost money, and you do have a habit of like looking for the next thing that's going to make you feel balanced.
And why did you decide to work with me?
I did your attachment workshop, really resonated with me because I'd never really heard about attachment theory, and I was like, oh my god, it's me, that the anxious attached. Your session really made me feel quite compassionate to why I might be quite so like anxious around relationships and with men. Just made so much sense, and I was just like, I need to explore this more.
What had you tried before that didn't work, and what was different about working with me?
It was all new to me, like really looking at why some of my kind of habits were playing out in relationships. And I had gone back and looked at my childhood, and there was a lot of abandonment and rejection in my childhood, and I think I didn't understand that I was actually playing that out in all of my relationships as well. So I was literally expecting someone to reject me and not want me. And that was so much down to my own self-worth. Really why I came to you, because I was like, if I can understand that, maybe I can make some changes.
And what happened for you during our time together?
Wow. In relationships, I've totally changed. I was anxious attached. I would say I'm secure now. Obviously, there are moments of where I can see where certain insecurities are triggered, and I can look at that in a very different way now, and I can recognize what it is, whereas before I wouldn't have done, and I would have spiraled out of control. Now I can sit with quite the discomfort and really look at it. You've given me some really amazing tools to be able to do that and work through maybe some of the things that I'm telling myself in difficult situations, and that's what I did. And I was able to like go from this like paranoid, checking my phone every 5 seconds, like expecting someone to reject me, to be able to sit very easily with like some discomforts, which I felt like embodying that discomfort really helped it to diminish, and it became less and less. Then you've taught me tools to self-soothe, so that I can sit with difficult emotions and treat them as learning opportunities for myself. And I feel a lot more secure in myself. So actually, that outside person, I'm not so desperate for. I now treat the experiences that I'm having with men, particularly, but it has played out in other areas, as an opportunity to learn about myself, and then to put, okay, well, that didn't work for me that time. What would I do differently? And treat it as like I'm detached rather than taking everything so personally, and watch my narrative around what is happening and what am I making it mean. Those particular questions have been really, really important with my work as well. I started work with quite severe imposter syndrome, and just really looking at my narrative around things, being able to detach and again sit with difficult emotions rather than taking it really personally, which has been a really big development. And knowing that you can only really work on your response to something rather than controlling someone else's. It's changed everything, really, the tools that you've given me. It's changed my friendships, and I feel like my friendships have improved because I have better boundaries. You know, I used to be and have been a very much like, to be a good friend, you have to self-sacrifice. And I realize that that's not true. You know, I think again it's looking at my childhood of like needing to be seen and heard. I needed to overcompensate, and that's what I've done in all areas of all my relationships. And then when you actually look at it and you realize what you're still doing at your cost, yeah, and realizing that a good friend will want you to hold your boundaries and do what is going to be good for you, and encourage you to hold those boundaries as well. A lot of my friendships were evolving. At first they were a bit like, hang on a minute, you'd normally do this, and it was a bit of a transition, but in the end it's actually worked out to be really positive. And all my closest friends evolve with me in difficult situations where sometimes I may not have spoken up and I would have taken it away and felt resentful. I now make space for myself. If someone says something difficult and at that time I don't have a response, I might say, well, that makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, and then I'll have to go away and think about it. And then what I've done, and this is played out in lots of things, I've made time for myself to be able to express myself once I've actually sat with what's coming up for me. And that has been really transformative, because, you know, even where someone hasn't made that space for me in that moment, again, not personal, it could be for many reasons, what I've found is that when I've actually asked them, look, can we have a conversation about this? And I've actually explained to them, you know, what I'm feeling, or whether they've realized, quite often they haven't. It's just, that's my story. And by telling them what I'm feeling, I've totally made space for opportunity to change and for us to be closer as a result, by expressing actually what it makes me feel like. So that's really empowering.
And can you also share about the transformation that took place with you with the drinking? Because you shared that that was something that you were struggling with before we started the coaching, and where are you at now?
Now I am definitely not drinking so much, and I've realized I can now look at it in a detached way and go, oh, hang on a minute, why am I drinking? And then in occasions where it is because I'm really stressed out and can't cope with life, that's the time that I'm not going to drink. So then I make that decision, and that's a major step forward. And in a lot of situations, I'm not drinking. So where I would have been like, this is what I need to have a good time, I don't drink in a lot of situations, and that's a really big forward movement too. But I'm a lot more compassionate to myself, and I'm a lot more kinder to myself. I used to really, really beat myself up, and I had so much shame, particularly around alcohol. Like, and that is from childhood and escaping quite an aggressive family upbringing. Just transforming my intentions around why I'm drinking and really looking at that before I decide to have a drink has really changed things for me. Realizing also, you know, I was just pushing myself in so many areas to be 150%, and just realizing that, you know, that's not actually to be successful and to be a good friend and to be a good family member, and you don't have to overcompensate to that degree, has really been transformative to me. I don't need to run myself into the ground to be the best I can possibly be, and I think that's the balance, really, and that's what you've really taught me.
What did you like best about doing coaching with me?
I really like the fact that it's practical tools. So you give me tools that I can use daily. I'm not good with just sitting on a sofa and talking about my problems. I wanted, you know, to be active and and I could immediately see transformation, because once I did those activities a few times, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I see. I was playing out rejection in a dynamic with a man, for example, just sitting with that discomfort, you know. And one particular occasion, it lasted a week, and it was really, really hard. But it was so transformative, because then I was like, okay, well, I think I can deal with rejection now. And I just became a little bit more kind of like confident, just to say, well, look, you know, what's the worst case scenario? They're not going to be on the same page as you. And is that such a bad thing anyway? At least you've found your voice, you've spoken up, you've said what you want. And if they don't want the same thing, that's okay. But, you know, before it would be like, oh no, you know, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to, like, you know, I just need to sort of contort myself into what other people want me to be. And that's in all areas of my life. And now I feel really comfortable with who I am. And that's through sitting with some of the stories that I'd been telling myself. A lot of it was down to me. And that was the only thing that I could do anything about. And that's what the sessions really helped with. It's like, okay, I can do this. For me, really empowering, an awakening to become more self-aware of yourself and how much you create your own pain, but also to be compassionate with it as well, as to why that might be. It's not like, you know, before I used to beat myself up, and now it's kind of like, no, there's a reason for this, and I can be a lot kinder and to myself and, you know, gentle, where I used to be quite aggressive with my own and have so much shame. And now I don't.
Who do you think would benefit from my coaching?
I think everyone could benefit with your coaching. I think you're really, really good at working with people who need relationship support and transforming some of our, you know, built-in attitudes really to relationships. Going back to the kind of attachment theory, I think really understanding that is so key to moving forward in positive relationships, and that's in all areas, like every area. It's not just like men and women, it is your work relationships, your family relationships, all of those things. Like, you know, it's looking at your habits of what you're doing that creates difficult feelings. So I think that's why I say everyone could benefit, because it is looking at relationships with everything. It's not just, you know, man and women, which you're particularly good at. And I mean, like I say, I'm a totally different person when it comes to my relationship with men now. I'd say one of the biggest transformations, because I'm more compassionate to myself. I'm not looking for an outside person to make me feel safe, or, you know, it's not like I feel complete. Your coaching offers is really looking at your relationship with yourself and how looking after your own needs, and being compassionate towards yourself, how much that can potentially transform everything around you too. The fact that I can go from so anxious to I would say secure now, yeah, it's pretty amazing. And it's not been that long, has it? You know, it's 6 months. So it can happen, because everyone wants to be close and have intimacy, really. We all want connection in some way. I know men who are anxious attacks shut down from intimacy, such fear around it.
Just because I know people, when they're in that anxiousness, they think that that's how they have to live their whole life. And for you to just say, like, I went from anxious to secure within 6 months, and let's say even less than that, like we're concluding our coaching now, but you transitioned into secure months ago. And so for you to really be able to speak that and say, it's there, it's true, it's stable within me, I don't suffer all that I used to suffer. There's a lot of people that need to hear that.
It's so true. And it's debilitating. It's totally debilitating. The pain you play out because you're telling yourself that you're being rejected, and it's not real. What you're doing is rejecting yourself. In my case, I'm sure it's different for everybody. To learn that and to transform it is really, like, I'm eternally grateful. So thank you.
It was a joy and a pleasure to do coaching with you. And I'm just in awe of all of the work that you did on yourself, and your courage and your constant commitment and your compassion, everything. So thank you. And I wish you all the best.